guys, and welcome back to UK Media Warrior. Today I am going to attempt to review one of the most controversial films out there at the moment, which is probably you've already guessed, Ghostbusters. I was a bit late coming to see this, but I saw it over the weekend with my wife, and I went into it with mixed feelings. I'm a huge fan of the original, which probably wasn't a good thing. If I had gone in not seeing this, not having seen that film, it would have probably struck me a different way. But I am a fan of the original. I still think it holds up today, although the graphics, the CGI might be a bit iffy, but it was like 20 years ago. But this film isn't as bad as everyone on the internet, perhaps, well, not everyone, but a majority of the internet was hoping it was going to be bad, and it had a lot of flack. Obviously, everyone's probably up to speed on the controversy about the internet and how YouTube commenters have been hammering the cast and the film and Paul Feig, the director. So a lot of people were probably hoping this wouldn't do well. Their reasons are their own, and I don't need to get into them. For me, the film wasn't a bad film, wasn't a good film, it wasn't the film I hoped a reboot of Ghostbusters would be, and I've been hoping for a reboot for years, ever since I heard the faint rumblings of there might be one about 10-15 years ago. But Bill Murray was always the one who stopped the sequel going forward. In his eyes, or so it's been reported, he said, we did Ghostbusters 2, it wasn't a success. Unless somebody comes up with a miracle script, I'm not going to do another one. So even though Dan Aykroyd, Harold Ramis, Ivan Reitman, the original director, all wanted to go ahead with a third Ghostbuster set in the original universe, Bill Murray wasn't going for it. And obviously, unfortunately, Harold Ramis has now passed. And although Ivan Reitman still wants to go ahead with a different style of Ghostbusters than the one we see on the film now with a new one, we're stuck with the Paul Feig one. Now, there's been a lot of contention about, is the negativity about there being 4 women Ghostbusters? Okay, well, let's handle that first. Now, I've seen quite a few reviews out there about this film, because, as I say, I came to it late. And nearly every reviewer, other than a brave couple, have stayed away from this subject, because they know, whatever they say, they're going to get crucified by one side of the internet or the other. But a couple of brave reviewers, and oddly enough, they're both women, I've seen and I've listened to, and they have been very critical about the film. And although everyone agrees that the 4 female actresses in their own right are very talented and funny, and I believe they're all Saturday Night Live regulars, together as a crew in this film, they don't work. So that isn't necessarily because it's 4 females, that's why it doesn't work. That's not the point. The point is that these 4 women, these 4 comedians in this film, under this director, with this plot, they just don't hit the mark. And I have to agree with that. They don't. And another thing is, this is a flat-out, balls-to-the-wall comedy. From beginning to end, that's what they go for. The original Ghostbusters is technically a comedy, but it's not full out all the time. Every 2 seconds somebody tells a joke. It's not that. And the comedy comes from, in the original, the fact that these 4 guys are just normal guys. They're just everyday blokes trying to make a living, trying to survive. Yeah, okay, they're slobs, maybe, you know. Bankman is obviously a bit of a slime. But they're just normal guys, and you can connect with that. You know, you see them just trying to fight the man, you know, trying to fight the bureaucracy and just do what they think is right. And the fun and the humour come from Bill Murray's razor-sharp wit and one-liner delivery, and the situations they are put in. It's not beat you over the head comedy and fart jokes, which unfortunately this new film actually fell into that. Within the first 10-15 minutes, yeah, fart jokes. Really? That's how you want to start off this new film? But I think the problem is that this film, the original, was basically almost a horror film. And it was aimed at adults, and it was aimed at adults with a horror feeling. Yes, it was funny, it had comedy, it had laughter, but it had a solid plot. It was horrific at times, scary at times. None of the people in the original story were idiots. You know, they might have been odd, eccentric, you know, like Rick Moranis' character was. But I mean, Sigourney Weaver's character was a cellist with an orchestra. You know, Venkman, Stantz, Egon, they're all scientists, you know. And then you get Ernie Hudson, who comes in as Winston Zeddemore. And he's just a blue-collar guy trying to, you know, make a living, get a job. As he says to Annie Potts, you know, I'll believe whatever you tell me if there's a regular paycheck in it. And that's his character. He grounds the team. He's the everyman. He's us experiencing being with the Ghostbusters. In the new film, Leslie Jones plays that role. She's the blue-collar worker, subway worker. But it doesn't work, and it doesn't work because of the comedy, and because this film is aimed at an age group that seems to range from about 5 to 16. The jokes would land and hit with that age group. In fact, when I was sitting in the theatre, there was probably about 35 people in the theatre with me and my wife. And I was watching the film, but I was also sort of like trying to listen, see which jokes hit the mark, what got laughter from people behind us or around us. And there was laughter, but it only seemed to come from 3 people, all girls. I couldn't see them, obviously, but from the sound of the laughter, I would guess they were teens to early 20s. But other than that, there might be 1 or 2 occasions where everyone laughed. But other than that, it wasn't getting the sort of belly laughs and ride of emotion that a film with this much humour, supposedly, should have had. So it failed on that part. As I said, young kids will love it. Adults are going to be very 50-50 on this. If it appeals to your sense of humour, if your low-brow sense of humour is fart jokes and covered in slime and being pushed around by a proton beam in an alleyway and bouncing off walls and stuff like that, if that's your sense of humour, then that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Everyone's different. Everyone should be allowed to enjoy what they want to enjoy. So if that's what makes you laugh, I've got no problem with that. For me, my sense of humour is perhaps a little bit higher. You know, I need something that's sharper, more witty, more... There's actually some thought behind it. The laughter's come from the dialogue rather than slapstick humour on the screen. Perfect case in point, for me at least, in the original film, when the Ghostbusters go to their hotel on their first call to get Slimer, and they go up to the 22nd floor or the 12th floor, whatever floor it is that this ghost manifested on. They get out the elevator and they're walking down the corridor, and all a second they hear this squeaking behind them, and they turn around, and Egon and Ray both let rip with the proton packs and blow the crap out of this maid's trolley.
What the hell are you doing?
Sorry, I'm sorry. We thought you were someone else.
And after they apologise, you know, they huddle up, and Ray says to the group, you know, I think it might be better if we split up. And Venkman goes, yeah, we can do more damage that way. I mean, it's just, I've seen this film dozens of times, and every time I hear that, Bill Murray delivers it with such perfect timing and perfect tone of voice. It just creases me up every time. What can I say? That's my humour, and that's why the original works for me. Another bone of contention I have with this film is that a lot of reviewers have said that Kate McKinnon, who plays Holtzman, the crazy engineer, takes them out of the film. That she's too much. That she's always, even if she's in the background, she's pulling faces or jiggling around or doing something to get your attention. And that ruins it for them. But to my mind, Holtzman was the only one of the Ghostbusters who had her own character, who was actually sparking on the screen. The others just fell flat. Even Leslie Jones, who was trying to play this outspoken, loud black lady, Kate McKinnon was the one that made me laugh. Her out there wacky engineer works. It does work. And I don't care what other reviewers might say. It works. It honestly does. And out of all the Ghostbusters, she is the only one that made me laugh and got me to smile. So, thumbs up for Kate McKinnon. She did fantastic. Melissa McCarthy, I don't like, as I've said previously. And in this film, although she's toned down her usual loud, obnoxious character, when she's not in Ghostbusters garb, when she's just in the normal clothes at the Ghostbusters base, talking with her mates or talking with people, she's toned down. The second she gets on the Ghostbusters uniform, she's holding a proton pack or whatever weapon she happens to be holding. She goes full McCarthy, and all of a sudden she's loud and she's obnoxious and she just annoys me. So there's the two McCarthys in this one. One I can deal with and one just, nah. Kristen Wiig is an excellent actress. And she's been in a few Paul Feig films. The same as McCarthy. Mr. McCarthy's Paul Feig's fallback actress. She's been in the last 3 of his films. Kristen Wiig is good, and she's not funny like Kate McKinnon was, but she's okay. She's a solid presence. I suppose you would say she's the Ray Stantz in this film. But she's boring. All the way through the film, she's like the weakest of the Ghostbusters in that she gets pushed around, nobody listens to her. She always seems to be in a position of being put upon by either men or other women or whatever. So that's not a stellar performance for her. Another problem with this film is that they've portrayed everyone other than the Ghostbusters as stupid or inept or just cowardly. Men and women. A lot of people have said that they just portray men in this film as cowardly, stupid, and haters. That's not the case. If you watch the film, even the females, other than the Ghostbusters, are treated with the same disrespect. All of their characters are either antagonistic towards the Ghostbusters, or they're stupid, or they just can't be bothered, or whatever. The only one where you might have an argument to say, well, that's not true, is Annie Potts, who played Janine in the original. She plays a hotel receptionist in that one, and she gets to say one of her lines from the original film, what do you want? Now, another squeezed in cameo role. But other than that, every other character in this film is either an antagonistic a-hole, or is just stupid, or is just there to make it the journey more difficult for the Ghostbusters. That brings us quite nicely onto Chris Hemsworth's character, Kevin. Why would Chris Hemsworth have taken this role? Well, considering that Kevin is just the dumbest human being on the face of the earth, and if he actually existed, wouldn't be able to live because he's just so stupid, it does make you wonder. But I came out of this thinking, fair dues to Hemsworth. He's actually got comedy chops on him. And I think in a proper comedy role, he would be absolutely fantastic. Because there are moments, he's got the timing, and he's got the expressions, and he can act the comedy. But what he was given to work with in this film is diabolical. It's almost embarrassing for the poor guy. I mean, for example, I mean, whenever there's a loud noise, Kevin covers his eyes like that, rather than covering his ears. I mean, it was, it started off, you laughed, you thought, yeah, okay, it's stupid. Okay, still being stupid. Okay, we're 2/3 of the way through the film now, and he's still being stupid. Oh my God, he's still stupid. And then he gets taken over by the bad guy, Rowan, and at that point, he actually gets quite interesting. But the bad guy in this film is actually quite weak, and it opens a lot of plot holes. The guy is basically just a nerd who gets picked on by everyone, who can't stand the fact that he's being picked on by everyone, and has somehow managed to devise and build these devices which increase the energy for ghosts so they can actually manifest. And he puts them all over New York, supposedly to beef up, to energize the ley lines that are going through New York. So once the lines are energized, he can then operate his big machine, and that will release all of the ghosts. How did he find out how to build these machines? That's number one. They explain it by saying, oh look, he's got the same book that Kristen Wiig and Melissa McCarthy's character wrote years ago about ghosts. So, okay, because they walk into his hideout and somebody says, well, look, he uses the same equipment as us. How's that possible? And then one of them picks up their book and go, oh, well, he's got the same book. Well, no, I'd very much doubt the blueprints of building devices that will bring ghosts into our world would be in their book. Even if they were technically minded enough to have created those devices years ago, you wouldn't have put them in your book with diagrams of how to build them. That's like saying, hey, we've created an atom bomb. Let's go and write a book about it, show people how to build it, and then we'll just put it on Amazon. Duh! So he wouldn't have the know-how to build the same sort of devices that the Ghostbusters do. The only reason the Ghostbusters have got those devices is because Kate McKinnon's character, Holtzman, builds them. She's the crazy engineer genius. And she just creates these things like out of thin air. By the end of the film, they've all got like these weird weapons. They've got nunchucks and like knuckle dusters that beat up ghosts, and the proton packs can do like a dozen different things now. And it just gets stupid. But he wouldn't have the tech to do this. Okay, and why would it? Okay, he's a nerd who's being picked on, but he thinks the best way to deal with this is to bring all these ghosts into our world to kill people and make life miserable. Really, that's the best bad guy you could come up with? I mean, at least in the original, they were up against Gozer, who was a supernatural entity. He had reason for being the way he was, or she was, or they were. But equally, at the end of the film, he dies by electrocuting himself. He takes over Kevin's body, uses that to finish his work, and then leaves Kevin's body and becomes a ghost. Now, he should be, at this point, just a normal ghost. There's nothing special about him. And yet he can do all these extra special things. Like, he can create and turn into a huge marshmallow size, as in the original film, the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. We get, at the end of this film, the Ghostbuster symbol. He turns into a Ghostbuster symbol, but like skyscraper height. He turns into that, but he's just a normal ghost. So if he can do that, why can't all these other ghosts turn into skyscraper tall creatures and destroy Manhattan? Doesn't make any sense. So the ending, the last quarter of the film, is just a techno neon ghost stupid fight sequence, make no sense mess. It's just a complete mess. And the ending is just sort of like, okay, we need to create a huge ghost trap to pull all of these ghosts back down into the Netherworld. How are we going to do it? I know, we just happen to have this 3-foot wide silver cylinder on top of the car that's actually a nuclear device. If we hit that with the proton packs, that'll blow up and become a ghost trap. Really? Well, that's a coincidence, isn't it? What a bit of luck. But then Slimer and his wife happen to be driving around Manhattan in the Ghostbusters in Ecto 1. Don't get me started on Slimer. Then he just happens to be barreling up the street exactly where the Ghostbusters need him to be, and they manage to get him to fly into the centre of this hole where all the ghosts are coming out of. And with aimed precision, they manage to all aim their proton packs and hit the little silver 3-foot wide canister on top of their roof of the car, blow it up, and make this ghost trap to start sucking the ghosts back in. This is despite the fact, up until this point, they've been waving the proton packs around and hitting, unless the ghost is about 20 foot away from them, they couldn't hit anything. They couldn't hit a brick wall with these things. All of a sudden, they all four of them can hit this moving vehicle, this small object on top of the roof with pinpoint precision. So yeah, so there's that. The cameos weren't needed. They just weren't needed. They made a huge thing. Paul Feig made a huge thing out of saying that this film is not a sequel. It's a remake. It's a reboot. Has nothing to do with the original film. And yet, the original Ghostbusters were supposedly contractually obliged to appear in this film for cameos. So you have Dan Aykroyd, who turns up as a cabbie, who says like 3 lines, and one of them of which is, "I ain't afraid of no ghosts." Really? It just felt so hammy. And Bill Murray, I love Bill Murray. He is one of the funniest, best actors on the face of the world, of the planet. And yet he just doesn't seem to care in this cameo role. He's got the longest one of everyone. And he plays this like debunker scientist. But he just walks through it. He's just mailing it in. You can tell, he was looking at his face and his tone of voice. He just doesn't care. He just doesn't want to be there. But he's forced to be there. The only one who actually perhaps puts some effort into it is Ernie Hudson, who appears at the end and is Patty's uncle, who owns the funeral home where she's borrowed the car from. But he's only in it for like 2 seconds, blinking you miss him at the end. You remember the Hell Dog Zool from the original film? Well, yeah, he gets mentioned at the end of this film in the post-credit sequence where Patty's listening to some tapes. Perhaps you remember him better as the possessed Dana Barrett, maybe? Yeah, I do. The other cameos, I say, Andy Garcia is the mayor, and he just hams it up. And it's another great actor, but it's almost like they got all these names and they said, we want you in the film for 2 minutes, and here's a big paycheck, and that's all you need to do. Just stand there, say these lines as if you read them into a mirror. Like, don't worry, just say the lines. Here's your paycheck. There you go. Right, thanks. Bye. And that's really how all the cameos come across. None of them, even Andy Garcia, who's in there quite a bit as the mayor, it just hams it up, and it just doesn't. There's no feeling of effort in them. It's like none of them want to be there. So, although the film is watchable, I mean, I saw one review where the guy said it's not a bad film, but it's probably best if you watch it on Netflix on a Saturday afternoon on the small screen. He actually thought it would look better on the small screen watching it on Saturday afternoon on Netflix. I think that pretty much sums it up. So that's it. Ghostbusters, the new Ghostbusters. At the moment, is not doing well at the box office. It's on its second weekend right now. It's just finished its second weekend right now. On a budget of 144 million, which doesn't include marketing, so you can probably add about another 10 million on top of that, it's currently done 122 million worldwide. It's on its second weekend. And it's going up against strong competition from this. Well, it went up against strong competition this weekend. Star Trek came out. But from this point on, next weekend, weekend after, it's got some heavy films coming out, and it's just going to drop. It's just going to bomb. From this point on, I doubt it will be in the top 5 going forward. It might just squeeze in at number 5 next weekend. But I don't think it will last beyond that. So it's going to be lucky to make back its production value, its budget plus the marketing. And already Sony is saying, oh yeah, we're going to do a sequel. Yeah. Paul Feig said this film had to do at least 200 million to come in with a profit and be profitable enough to make a sequel. 200 million. and it's currently done 122 million worldwide in its second weekend. I just can't see it reaching the 200 million, and if Sony does push ahead with a sequel, they're stupid. Absolutely stupid. It just won't make any money. They tried their way of doing it. They gave a film to Paul Feig that they should never have let him touch. He did what he always does, put in a load of funny women, and basically has made bridesmaids with proton packs, and it didn't work. Unless you're a kid, you're not going to get the humour. You're not going to find it that funny. And it's just not that good of a film. It's not well scripted. It's not well acted. It's just not. So for me, I'm going to give this one a rating of 5 out of 10. Purely for the fact that the first half of the film is okay. The first half of the film's not too bad. And to be honest, the best part of the whole film for me was the first few seconds, the first few minutes of the film, where the film opens, and you get the riff from the original Ghostbusters theme, the Ray Parker Jr. theme. The second that kicks in on a big screen again, and I haven't seen that for 20 or 30 odd years, you just get that feeling of, yeah, okay, Ghostbusters, they're back, let's see what we're going to do. And yeah, it's all downhill from there. So 5 out of 10 for me, based purely on the first half of the film. After that, it just goes off the rails. Anyway, that's my review and recap of Ghostbusters, the 2016 reboot version. Thank you for watching. Sorry if I ranted there for a bit, but I'm probably not the first reviewer you've seen do that. Thank you for watching. If you did enjoy, please subscribe to my YouTube channel and share on your Facebook, and hopefully we'll get a few more people to watch some of my reviews. You guys take care, and I'll see you for the next one, which will be Star Trek Beyond. See you later.